Hi everyone, my name is Heather Monaghan. I am a fifth-year PhD student in the Department of Criminal Justice, and today I'm going to be presenting on my topic that I will be having for my dissertation that I will be defending next month, thank God, on reporting violence in schools and multi-level analysis. And this is a project that I became very interested in as I was doing my master's thesis, which I basically found that unfortunately a lot of school security measures aren't really as impactful as we'd want them to be. So things like student resource officers, metal detectors, cameras in the schools really aren't living up to their potential, even though we're spending billions of dollars on these different school security measures. However, in the research I have also found that students making reports against violence that they're aware of has shown a lot of potential at being able to prevent violence. The U.S. Secret Service actually does a publication each year that talks about the different bomb plots or school shootings that were ultimately prevented because students made a report. Unfortunately, anywhere between 30 to 40% of students still wouldn't make a report of violence even if they were made aware of it. And the reasons that students choose not to make a report vary a lot between each student. The purpose of this dissertation is basically to uncover the reasons that students have against making a report of violence in schools. Ultimately, I draw a comparison to Sykes and Motz's original techniques of neutralization theory made in 1957. And the reason why I draw this comparison is that as I was reading the literature on student reporting behaviors, I found that there were a lot of parallels between student reporting behaviors and the original Sykes and Motz theories, namely that students will ultimately choose not to make a report because they neutralize the threat of violence. So they basically are downplaying the threat of violence. And they do this in 5 main ways that really align with the original 5 techniques of neutralization, in that they deny their responsibility, so they think that the school will handle it or that someone else will make a report. They deny the victimization, so they think that either the victim did something to deserve it, such as if they were a bully or if the violence was retaliatory, or they otherwise just don't see that there's really a true victim. They deny the injury and basically saying that they don't actually think that there's a true harm being happened or that the threat isn't all that serious. They condemn the condemners in that they think that the school will do something that is unjust if they made a report, so they may be too stringent with their punishments, such as arrests or suspensions or expulsions, or they may be too lenient and just ultimately not do anything if they made a report. And then finally appeals to higher loyalty. So basically the students' allegiance to their friends and their peers, or even to their own image, is more important than making the report. So they may not want to tell on their peers to get them into trouble, or they may not want to be labeled as a snitch or a tattletale. And these are a lot of the reasons that I found within the literature. And I basically thought, hey, this has a lot to do with those original techniques of neutralization. So basically I came up with a research project to test whether or not these neutralizations exist. And not only that, but also what causes these neutralizations to develop in the first place, because this ultimately is what we need to focus on in order to prevent neutralizations and therefore encourage students to make a report. And I do so in a 3-part survey. The first portion of the survey I ask about demographics, so race, age, gender, sexuality, and then also personal level characteristics of self-responsibility and self-efficacy, as well as school characteristics, so connectedness to the school and an adult being in the school so that they can make a report to. And then from there, I either have them randomly assigned to a vignette portion where they're presented with a case of violence in a school that they're basically asked to act as though they're a student within a high school coming across 2 students making a threat of violence. And I randomize it between the severity of violence and the number of bystanders. Or the participant could either be randomly assigned to either this vignette portion or recollection portion. And in the recollection portion, I'm basically having them respond and talk about an incident of violence that they experienced while at high school. And then from there, I'm asking them a series of closed response questions that really get at those neutralizations. And then beyond that, open response questions so they can more freely explain why it is they chose to make a report or chose not to make a report. And then from there, I'm having a mixed methods approach. So basically having those open response questions analyzed for patterns and see whether or not those neutralizations flesh out more naturally, and then the quantitative section just to see if they statistically adhere to these neutralizations, as well as what it is that's statistically causing these neutralizations to develop as well. And then from there, ultimately what this research project can do is show the reasons that students have against making a report, whether it's the neutralizations or just in their free response, the reasons that they have against making neutralizations. And some of the preliminary results that you can see here, these are direct quotes from those open response questions, fall in line exactly with the neutralizations, as people say they don't want to take responsibility because they think it's the school's job. They don't want to be labeled as a snitch. They don't think it's all that serious and things like this. And of course, there's only so much room on a poster to be able to present quotes, but there's a lot more quotes that fall in line with those neutralizations. And ultimately what these projects can do is allow us to develop policies that ultimately can encourage students to make report, falling in line with what this research would show. And from there, we can really create a safer school environment. Thank you.